So, hello, fellow Earthlings. This is Earthling 6455463728, and I wanted to talk about how to get more babies, and also if conservatives are not shooting themselves in the foot with respect to vaccine, coronavirus denials and vaccine hesitancy. So, how to get more babies? Um, okay. For one thing, as a private citizen, and also as a result of my reading, I have found that you need to give young women who are the primary controllers of whether or not we have babies, um, they need to have free time. They need to have like no job and just nothing to do, and they will get pregnant. And you're like, really? Do you think that's the case? Well, based on my personal experience, people who are um, in university or working 9 to 5 or whatever the case might be, um, women especially, they don't have time for romance. And if you don't have time for romance, you don't have time to get pregnant, make a baby. And you probably are going to be struggling to make ends meet. So, if any governments or countries are serious about having more children, even if it's just women alone, because I guess men may find a way, um, and maybe they might not. Maybe you just need to have free time for people in the prime of their life, meaning, um, you know, new adults, to have kids. If you have everybody trying to get into university or trying to get jobs because they can't make ends meet, like I said, you're not going to have time for coupling and courtship and all of this stuff that's necessary. And you're going to make it difficult for people who eventually have kids to make ends meet. You need to have benefits. You need to allow for this kind of thing to happen. Now, I'm just going to go a little bit off tangent for a second, and hopefully you'll understand what I mean. I mean, I've already stated it, but I'll give you some examples. A lot of times when I personally would get involved in different extracurricular activities, I would find that, for better or for worse, I had a focus not necessarily on meeting girls, um, or developing relationships, whether male or female, in the class. It was normally on, like if I took a Spanish class, it was normally focused on Spanish or whatever it might be, not on hanging out, doing poorly in the class, but forming bonds with people in the class. You know, those people at the back of the class who don't really pay attention, and they just kind of use the class as an excuse to socialize. They are having kids. That's how you have kids. You're not going to have kids from people who are coming to the class like me and really, really paying attention to the teacher and, you know, doing the homework and all of this other stuff and not really paying too much attention to the other people that are in the class and, you know, class activities and so on and so forth. I know, for example, a girl that I developed a relationship with. Um, the reason that I was able to develop a relationship with her is because she didn't have a job. She did not have a job, and she had a lot of free time to talk with me over social media. And as time passed and I was able to help her find jobs, she had less time to talk to me. And if it was about, let's say, getting her pregnant to have more kids like China wants, or like the USA wants, or like different places want, that's not going to happen if everybody is trying to make ends meet. Now, it seems very unlikely that uh, the rich and powerful are going to want to bear the taxes, and they're the only ones that can. If you are already poor and you live in hand to mouth, you don't have excess money. I mean, society tries to wring every last drop that it can from the poorest of the poor, by having people, encouraging people to rack up credit card debt, um, by having them pay high interest loans, and taking, like, what are those things called, check cashing places and all this other stuff. But you can't get blood from a stone. The money has to come from the people who have money, and they don't want to do that. And as you can, all of us really pay attention to American media because they have the biggest media, and we can see that it's an uphill battle to try to increase the minimum wage and make less wealthy people have a bigger slice of the pie. It's a very hard thing to do. But if life is easier for people who are just now graduating school and out there, and they have more free time, for whatever reason, they're going to have kids. That's just how it is. And if they have to scrape to get by, they are not going to have, if they have 2 and 3 jobs just to get by, they're not going to have kids. Maybe if they're unemployed, they might have kids, as a matter of fact, like in the examples that I gave. So yeah, society will not, let's be realistic, and not going to give freedom to young people. And that's the other thing too. If you have people who are delaying the time when they're going to have kids, it means that they are not going to be in the habit of having kids. You don't need everybody to do it. You just need some people to be able to do it. And those people who do have kids, if they have kids at a younger age, then they often continue to have kids because that is the habit, that is the lifestyle that they have gone into. If you punish them by denigrating them and calling them welfare queens and whatever else, you're going to have less people. You're going to buy less stuff, and your population is going to shrink. And then if you're hating on immigrants and you don't want them in the country, whether as refugees or as illegal immigrants or whatever, hey, you're going to have to bear the cost of that. You look at Japan, they don't really want immigration. They know they need it, but they don't want it. And it's already so difficult to get there anyway. And then learn Japanese and learn about the culture. And we're going to see how it's going to go. On another point of view, or another point, we have, I actually have forgotten what the next thing that I was going to talk about is. Yeah, and that's it. Whether or not conservatives, because you know what? Everything is about natural selection. And there is a huge discrepancy between, in the US, and I imagine just across the world. Conservative people in the US, according to the polls, 45% of them are getting vaccinated, as opposed to 80% of people who are liberal Democrats who are getting vaccinated. And we know that, number one, the coronavirus is most dangerous for elderly people. And we know that elderly people are the one of the biggest voting blocs, and they're probably much more likely to be conservative. So there's a lot of, voter restriction and stuff, laws that are being pushed in America, and that's great for the conservatives. Um, what is also great, I suppose, is the fact that a lot of poor people are going to probably be conservative. Um, I don't know how to split that, because on the one hand, if you're more educated, you're more likely to be Democrat, and on the other hand, the poor people, especially minorities, and maybe that's the thing, minorities were hit hard, I suppose, by the coronavirus epidemic. So there's that. But going forward, um, more conservatives will be available for death, because the baby boomers are there, they're aging, they might be conservative, and they're not getting their shots. I mean, there were some people, wasn't it Rush Limbaugh who was saying that he's willing to die so that his grandkids and kids can have a better economy? And I think he ended up dying after all anyway. Um, this is going to be kind of interesting. It's going to be kind of interesting to see how natural selection works on conservatives. And if it's not going to end up pushing some of the purple states blue as people die, potentially quicker than liberal or democratic people. Also, it's probably going to potentially even push some red states blue or more purple as people die. It really, in the future, it depends on what happens in the future. Because right now we know that a lot of people have died in the US, like 500,000 people. And the people who are vaccinated are now Democrats. They might survive and just go to the polls and push the whole of America more liberal, because, if it is that something is not going to be a selective pressure, like let's say everybody has access to healthcare, whether they believe in it or not. And as a result, everybody survives, whether they believe in it or not. But then when it's your choice to actually go and take advantage of the healthcare, as in the case of vaccinations, and you decide that you're not going to, that is perhaps going to be selective pressure when it comes to voting. And I find that is going to be a little bit hilarious, especially when you look at other things that people think that they're going to get a particular outcome, like with respect to putting so many people, so many conservative judges on the Supreme Court in the US, and then they still almost unanimously vote to uphold Obamacare. That is just kind of hilarious. But it remains to be seen how the demographics of the US change as people continue to die from coronavirus infections, because they decided that they didn't want to get vaccinated. Anyway, that's my 2, 3, 4, and 5 cents. Thanks for listening. You have a good one.